So, in this video, we're going to be figuring out something called slope. But before we do that, I need to remind you guys what are points, not PTS. I just didn't feel like writing points. Points, remember, show us how two things are related. How do we show if they're related? We put them on what's called an X and a Y axis. The X is horizontal, left to right. The Y is vertical or up and down. All right? So if you think about like that, what's that song? The Electric Slide or Electric Boogaloo or the Electric Annoying Thing. Like we go from side to side, right? So that is the X axis. So what we want to focus on next is something called the slope. And the slope is something that will actually allow us to determine something or understand or do an in-depth analysis of the relationship between two things. So here's something important to know about the slope. The number, the sign, negative or positive, 0, infinite, is going to tell us about the direction. The magnitude, as in how big or small that number is going to tell us about the steepness. And if you ever have gone on a bike ride or a walk or a climb somewhere, you often hear about this word called gradient, and that indicates the steepness of the climb. Okay? So the larger the number, the steeper what we call the slope. If it's a lower number, then what we would say is that would be a gradual slope, which means, like me, since I'm not super fit, if you're on a bike ride, I'm probably looking for something with a lower gradient. All right? So how do I calculate slope? Well, we haven't even got there yet, right? We're not even going to focus on that at this minute. What we're going to realize is that the slope itself may sound kind of confusing, but all it's going to do is it's going to help us figure out what's going to happen between two variables. All right? So the slope is essentially saying is, okay, when something happens to X, then what happens to Y? Okay? So how does one thing impact the other, right? How does the change in people's paycheck affect how much money they spend? If we think back to COVID, when a lot of people got money put in their bank account by the government, we wanted to figure out how much of that money or what type of goods were they actually spending money on. Or we could look at, okay, how often I exercise or what type of exercise I do affects what type of impact it is going to be on my weight. All right? So the essential thing is that the slope is looked at in many different ways. So I'm going to put up this handout that I prepared earlier just to sort of explain it. So the slope here is going to have two things, the rise over the run. So if we think of the sun rising, right, the sun doesn't go from left to right. If it does, then maybe your vision's tricking you, right? The sun sets, the sun rises, and then we run. And you might say, well, what if I run up? No, we run right, we run backwards, we run forwards. So the slope is going to be the rise over the run. And the trick is, what I tell students is, especially when we're dealing with something linear, and what we mean is linear, we mean a straight line, is what I do is, if I want to find the slope between what we call 2 points, what I do is I draw a triangle, right? Or 3/4 or half of a rectangle, right? And essentially, what I want to do there is I want to find the slope. In our next video, we're going to actually figure out how to calculate the slope. So thank you for Slope 101. I hope you haven't fallen asleep yet. Peace out.